Welcome to this webinar with Paul Harris, organised by Faber Music for members of the Piano DAO Tea Room. And I'm delighted that we're also extending a welcome tonight to members of Piano Network UK and to Paul's friends around the world who are watching this live and who are later watching the recording, which is going to be available on the Piano DAO website in a few days' time. So bear with us and it will appear. A Piece a Week is, as you may know, a series that Paul Harris has been writing over the last 2 to 3 years, which has covered all of the grades so far up until grade 6, and has been a real triumph. My students have been using it and loving the series. I love it. I think it's great educationally and musically. And so it's great that we've now got this new addition to the series covering grades 7 and 8 in a single volume. And we're celebrating the launch of that with this webinar, but also here's an opportunity for Paul in person to explain the ethos behind the series, how it came about, to introduce this new book, play some examples. We're going to be treated to some video that Paul's going to share. And later you'll be able to also, you can ask your questions in the Q&A box. And later on, I'll be handing over to Rachel Topham from Faber, who will field your questions to Paul so that he can answer them. And so that's something to just pile up the questions ready. Paul is, of course, well known around the world as one of our leading music educators and writers. He's a very good personal friend of mine, and it's I'm really delighted that we can welcome him here. I know that many people will be watching this because of their respect and love for Paul and his work. So welcome to you all, and let's welcome Paul Harris.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm going to share screen, if I may. Is the sound working?
Yes.
Oh, that is wonderful. Excellent. So, well, thank you very much indeed, Andrew, for lovely words, and thank you, Rachel, for setting this up. And very nice to see everyone, even though I can't see anyone. But I did actually get a glimpse of everyone's name a moment ago, it's very nice to be able to chat about this particular series, which we've now completed with the publication of the book 7 and 8. And I just thought, if I may, I'd just like to talk a little bit about it. And then I've done a little presentation, a little video presentation, which I hope will work. So the first question is why? Why have I put this together? Why have I written it? And it seems to me, and I speak also as an examiner, that a lot of pianists, young pianists and pianists at any level, at any age, often struggle to sight read. I know I'm not saying anything new there, which to me is a shame. It's a great shame. And as they go into their exams, I often see them looking a little bit like that, really. Not all of them, but a good deal of them, which is upsetting because sight reading, interacting with notation is not a difficult thing to do, but they do seem to be slightly intimidated by it. And so the idea of this series is kind of reduce that, hopefully get rid of that forever, and create a systematic series of pieces to enable learners to interact with the notation and not to be scared by it, to look at it and think, I can do that. The whole journey that we take our pupils on, it's a wonderful journey, really, isn't it? It's one of the great things that we do as teachers. We move from dependency, our pupils being dependent on us, and when they've had their final lesson, if they ever do, I hope they don't, we've given them some freedom. They can go out there into the big musical world and do music on their own, and part of that, not in every musical genre, but part of that in many musical genres is having that ability to read music, to get some music up on the stand, stuff that they hadn't seen before, and feel confident to be able to play it. It's such a nice thing to do. And that's very much at the heart of why I put this series together. I wanted to give a systematic range of pieces that will do that over a period of time. Of course, doing this particular book, this series, it's not actually sight reading in the sense that we don't actually say, right, here's a piece, I want you to sight read this piece. It's a piece a week. So pupils go home and learn a new piece a week. Of course, when our pupils begin, particularly, if we're using a tutor, they're learning lots of pieces, and maybe they're doing 2 or 3 or 4 pieces a week, because that's the way that tutors work. And then suddenly when they get out into the big wide world of being a pianist, then they're not doing all those pieces in the same kind of way, and maybe they're learning far fewer. I'm sure that no one who is here this evening does that thing that we do hear about. You've just done your grade 2, here is your grade 3 book, and in a year's time or 6 months time you'll be able to play these 3 pieces. So that's either 1 piece per 3 months or whatever it turns out to be. I'm sure no one does that, but there are teachers out there, and so it's no doubt, to understand why that these people can't actually sight read, because they are just learning one piece for quite a long time, and they learn it through tactile memory and through oral memory, by ear, by looking, and all sorts of ways that the dots, the notes on the page are really just an aid memoir to what they know already. They're not actually sight reading. So this isn't actually sight reading, but it does give our pupils the ability to interact with new notation on a regular basis, and I hope as a result begin to enjoy it. The standards of the piece within each book, so the standard of the grade 3 book, for example, is not the same as grade 3 pieces. It's much more akin to grade 3 sight reading. I've used the same criteria, the same keys, the same kind of rhythms they get in the sight reading. And so it really fits in very well along those lines. Each piece has lots of ingredients. I've really tried hard to put lots of ingredients, lots of markings, as well as the notes. Here's a little example from Dinosaur Alert. It's got staccatos and dynamic markings, goes from PPN to FF in the space of a few bars, and slurs and all sorts of things. And it's important that we try to get our pupils to look at these ingredients. There's always usually 1 or 2 kind of rhythmical ideas in a piece, so they can really explore and understand those rhythmical ideas, and based on particular melodic ideas as well, so they can really understand that. And there's quite a lot of humor, I hope anyway, in this book. Humor to me is an essential ingredient in teaching, and of course for a particularly scientific reason, because if our pupils are laughing, if they're having a good time, the brain releases certain endorphins, serotonin, dopamine, and these make us both feel good. They make us feel good, they make us enjoy what we do more, and they also allow us to learn better. It's so important. So I hope that you'll agree there is quite a bit of humor in the pieces as well. I want my pupils to really explore the style, the expression, the character of the music. Let's get them to think about this. Often, I'm sure that you've seen this, and our players don't always put it in. Maybe that's a bit harsh. They don't always put it in. And sometimes at exams, I feel they struggle sometimes to get the character, which is so important. When we're playing a piece, I want really to explore that character, and I want my pupils to enjoy the character. So there's a vast variety of kind of styles within all these pieces, for them to really explore and understand as they move forward. So that's really just a very brief background to the series. What I'd like to do now really is to show you this little video that I made. Let me just move out of this. I will just have to stop sharing for a moment and then start sharing again. And I'm hoping this is going to work and you'll all see and hear this. So it's a little video I made just yesterday, actually, and you'll see what it's about. Here we go. Fingers crossed. Do let us know if it's not working. So I thought I'd just give you a glimpse into each of the books, just show you 1 or 2 the kind of ideas that each one contains. The initial grade, obviously the technical requirements are very small, and mostly we're in 5-finger positions and that kind of thing. Although I do take us outside the usual sort of notes sometimes. There's a piece, for example, called The Little Jingle Bell, and it says, find the G 2 octaves above this note. So we're up here. You know, I'm sure you do use these notes, particularly in improvising. But you know, sometimes maybe a player hasn't actually experienced some of these high notes. So in The Little Jingle Bell, we use this particular note. Just give you a little indication. It starts. And next to it, we've got one called The Great Tolling Bell, which uses some very low notes. So it explores the piano. Another idea that I've used a lot right through all the books is the idea of holding notes down. Obviously, this won't work on an electric piano, although I've got ideas for an electric piano. And you get these wonderful sounds that pianos can make. So it says, play these 5 notes. Now play them all at the same time. Now find the same notes an octave lower, press the keys down, and it goes on and tells you to hold them down without making a sound. And then we have a piece here called The Sorcerer's Cavern. And so it goes on, and we can enjoy those lovely sounds that the piano does. And the other piece here I thought I might mention, Procession of the Goats, Gazelles and Goldfish. And all the pieces, I've tried to put quite a lot of markings in, because that's really, I want to encourage a development of the imagination. It's having a go at these pieces, one a week or however long people want to play them for, but really to develop colours, musical colours. So they've all got quite a number of markings and of different natures, articulation, dynamic. This one's got a lot of dynamic changes, and I hope will be instantly understandable for what it's trying to do. Let me play a little bit. Procession of the Goats, Gazelles and Goldfish. And so it goes on. So a lot to really think about there and enjoy. So for grade 1, again, there's about 30 pieces in each book. So altogether, you know, nearly 250 pieces in the whole series. And there's quite a few that are more kind of conventional, traditional in the way that they use the piano. But again, I'd just like to pick out 1 or 2 that are slightly less conventional, interesting. There's one here in grade 1 called What's That in the Mist? And firstly, I've asked for the pedal to be kept down throughout the piece. So some very gentle kind of little clusters which we create, and then this sort of rather misty tune that comes out of it. And I think interesting to play. So this is, I'll just give you a little bit of it. So again, their colour, character, and a bit of punctuation, which I'm going to talk a bit about more a little bit later on. And the other one I just thought I'd mention from this book is called Beeping Horns. And both hands only play 2 notes, or just about 2 notes, maybe 3 in the left hand. And it creates, it's all based on this chord here. And it's very energetic, lots of accentuations, staccato marks, but I think a lot of fun to be gained out of this piece, Beeping Horn. think they're going to enjoy that one. And just lots of other fun pieces. Lots of robots and spy pieces, chips and sauce. So that's grade 1. So moving on to grade 2, and I've chosen out of the collection here a couple of pieces. There's a few sort of spy pieces in it. This one is called Spies on a Mission, and it's a little bit more developed in terms of the use of technique and what the hands are doing. But again, just a lot of fun, I think, and I think that our learning pianists will enjoy this. Here's a bit of it. I'll leave it tantalizingly there, what happens to the spies at the end of their mission, but I think it ends happily. The other one I wanted to mention is a piece called Lost, because this gives us a chance really to get our pupils thinking about musical punctuation, which I think is such an important aspect of phrasing. Let me play you a bit and then I'll tell you what I mean. So a very expressive piece there, but lots of opportunity to punctuate. In other words, just to put little musical commas in between the first two two-bar phrases. When do you start that second phrase? And I think we can spend some time with pupils, and I think they will get that if we talk about the way we speak, the way we put commas into our speech. And similarly, that last note, there's a writ, but exactly where do you place that last note? Just waiting a moment, a little comma there, and you place that last note, and that gives it such a musical feel. So that's a couple of things from grade 2. Grade 3 has a lot of fun stuff in it. Again, I thought I'd just pick up 2. The first one, actually, ants and aardvarks, 2 of my favourite creatures. Here's one called Downtown. There's quite a number of them are quite jazzy in style, this one particularly. And so it goes on in that sort of simple, but you get a lot of the jazzier style there. And one of my favourites actually from this grade 3 book is the slow train. The slow train, which has a kind of train-like motif that goes all the way through, firstly in the right hand, then the left hand, and then a lovely warm melody to bring out and enjoy. So that's a couple of pieces from the grade 3 book. So just a couple of glimpses into grade 4. I thought I might just first, there's, as I've kind of mentioned, a number of spy-like pieces. This one's called Master Spy on a Mission. and so on. And it's got some unusual, well, maybe not unusual, but interesting rhythms throughout. They're not all four square. Interesting rhythms to kind of think about. There's a rather sort of Jurassic Park film music-y kind of one here called Dinosaur Alert. Again, lots of interesting ingredients, quite a lot of rests in this one, lots of dynamic colours to create. I'll just do the first three lines, which takes us from PP to FF, and has a sort of rather a film music-y kind of tune to it. So Dinosaur Alert. So it goes on. That's quite a favourite, certainly with some of my pupils. And one more, which is called the Bronx, NYC, New York City, which I've pinched a bit of Leonard Bernstein here. You'll see what bit I pinched. There's a bit more, but I think that one goes down really rather well. That's a couple of pieces then from grade 4. So I've chosen a couple from a lot of fun pieces in the grade 5 book. I thought I'd just play you a bit of this one called A Twist in the Plot. And a twist in the plot, there's just a couple of notes that you don't expect in this, but it's how you play them that's interesting and important. And obviously there's a wit in this piece. And again, that's something I want my pupils to think about. You know, how do you create these characters? So let me play just less than the last two lines, where there's a number of unexpected notes, but it's timing those notes and enjoying where you put them, all part of the fun of learning these pieces. Quite a bit of fun, I think, to be had at the end of that piece there, and other bits of it as well, where the plot twists. And just a little bit of this one, Haunted. There's a lot of sort of Harry Potter inspired pieces with all sorts of wizards and hexes and such like. This one's Haunted, C minor. Incidentally, all the books take as their basic ingredients all the keys and the kind of rhythms and other technical aspects that one would expect to find in sight reading pieces in those particular grade levels. So it absolutely prepares you for the sight reading, but does it in a, well, the way that we've been talking about, giving you a lot of experience in really looking at music and bringing it to life, and not being frightened by the dots on the page. A little bit of Haunted. The end of the story. So that's a bit of Haunted. A couple of pieces then from grade 5. There's a lot of fun stuff in grade 6. One piece actually called Skydive, which is a memory of when I jumped out of an aeroplane a couple of years ago. Rather an exciting moment. Anyway, I've chosen 3 just to give you a taste. The first one is called Cosmic Dust, and it's a study really in tone quality and colour. It's not in any way difficult from a technical point of view, but I think it's quite engaging from a musical point of view. So you keep the pedals down, and it does this kind of thing. And so on. It really gives you a sense of balance and touch and all sorts of other fascinating things. This one is called Shimmering. Actually, no, I won't do Shimmering next. I'll do that one last. I do this one called Frenzy. Similarly, it just uses the piano interestingly. It's another one where you hold down keys. There's one of these at least actually in every book. It's always a thing, getting those notes down without signing them. So Frenzy. So that's really quite fun to play. And then Shimmering, I'll just play you the last bit of this, which again, it's just interesting sounds that we get, and lots, I don't know whether you can actually see the notation there, lots of interesting notation in this, but lots of semiquavers, but I don't want people to be intimidated by semiquavers, just to enjoy them. So here's a bit of Shimmering. So a lot of fun to be had from that. So a couple of pieces from 6. And finally we come to the last book in the series, which I've only just completed, and was quite fun to do, quite hard work, but it was fun to do. Grade 7 and 8 in one book. And there's a lot of fun titles here. Hold on to your handlebars. I wonder what style that's going to be in. Let's end on a high note. That's the last piece, which does indeed do so. There's a micro prelude and fugue, and all sorts of other interesting things. I'd just like to just give you a few moments. Here's one I like. This one is called Two Bees or Not Two Bees. And there is an answer to that. You have to kind of work it out, but the answer's in the music. And it's in 3/8, and it gives you this kind of rather fun sort of bee-like effect. And so it goes on. Two bees or not two bees. There's one called 7, which is in 7 beats in the bar. Rather hypnotic. goes on. That's 7. And there's the Micro Prelude and Fugue. Some rather witty titles. Here's one called Hand It Over. You can see the reason why it's called Hand It Over. So there you are. That's a kind of look at what this whole series is about. And maybe I'll just play one complete one to finish off from the Great 7 and 8. And this one is called Machines. And there we have it. So thank you very much indeed. I hope that worked. I hope you were able to catch most of that, and from a technological point of view, you could hear it and it wasn't too buffered, and the sounds were working with the fingers and all that kind of stuff. But maybe for Andrew or Rachel say anything, I would just like to say a few thank yous, actually. I'd like to say very much thank you to Andrew for hosting this, and to Rachel and Faber for hosting it as well, and also kind of for allowing me to write all these pieces, which is terrific. It's a wonderful honor and privilege to be able to do all these things. And also to Emily, who is there somewhere, who's been editing most of these books, and that is such an important job, I can tell you. And also to a number of friends, some of whom are with us this evening, who have actually been playing and trying out these pieces for me. I never publish anything until it's been well tried out, and a number of friends with us this evening, and others who have not been able to come this evening, have tried all these pieces and said, oh no, that one's not so good, or can we think of a funnier title for this? So they're all well tried and tested. So thank you all for being part of the whole kind of process.
Thank you, Paul, as well. That was fantastic. And seeing just the comments coming through, Jasmine saying this is wonderfully engaging pieces for children and adults alike. Brilliant. And I just have to say, so personal favorite, I think, has to be Shimmering. That's absolutely beautiful. Yeah, there's so many different styles, so many different, and I really like how you definitely do bring the fun into sight reading. Those pieces are going to be pieces that many pianists are going to enjoy learning over the course of a week. So I just thought we'd have a look at some of the questions. So we have from Louise just asking kind of a clarity question really on how this series differs from the Improve Your Sight Reading books. If you could just let us know a little bit about the kind of the clear differences in those.
Yeah, well, yeah. Thank you, Louise. That's a very good and interesting question. I mean, the two series are very different indeed. And what I've tried to do in the Improve Your Sight Reading series is to teach people, to teach pupils in a very systematic way all the ingredients that they are going to have to conjure with to play their pieces. One of the interesting points, well, I hope it's interesting, that I often make when I'm doing some of my teaching talks is what is the difference between a beginner and a more advanced student? There's a very simple answer to that. Our beginner comes to us with either no knowledge of music. In other words, they have no knowledge of musical ingredients. Their bag is empty, or it has a very small number of things in it. Our advanced people has a big bag of ingredients, then they understand all those ingredients. And if they understand all those ingredients, then they can become advanced. There's nothing to stop them from becoming advanced. And if we teach in a very systematic way, every rhythmical idea is understood, every technical idea, artistic idea is understood, and it is put in our bag. We take that bag with us, and then we can delve into that bag, bring out whatever we need at any point, and do what is required of us. If there are things missing in the bag, that's what gets in the way, and we can't do stuff. And if you work through the Improve Your Sight Reading series very systematically, you will pretty much learn thoroughly every ingredient that will give you that ability in life to just do music. I mean, that's all there is to it, really. It's quite a simple thing. And so the Improve Your Sight Reading series, Louise, that's what it does. It takes all the ingredients. It gives you a musical way to learn them, hopefully enjoy learning them. There's lots of little pieces in there, but not pieces like this. These are quite different. These are fully fledged kind of pieces where you need to know the ingredients, as it were, before you tackle them. Or if you find you don't know some ingredients, then that's an opportunity then to fill in those gaps. So I hope that's a quick answer to that. We could spend more time talking about it, but that's in general the difference.
And RG just putting in the comments here saying, great to hear you playing them, Paul. Really, really interesting. I had a quick question, and it's I'm personally invested in the answer to this one, because I class myself as quite a confident sight reader, but I'm quite sloppy. So what advice would you give to people who feel like they can sight read, but they're not really kind of paying attention to the details? What tips have you got for me?
Okay, thank you, Rachel. Well, a couple of tips really. One is don't sight read quickly. Sight read your pieces at a pace where you have always got some brain space available to be aware of what you're doing, why you're doing it. Now, the better we get at what we do, the more free brain space we have, which is why, if we understand rhythm, if we understand key, when we're sight reading, which I hope we do, we learn to do that, then we have brain space to do all the expression, and we feel confident. I know what this is. I understand what this music is saying, and I know that I know that. And so I have got the brain space to really allow my imagination to come into the act as well, and play this music imaginatively. So I think, well, firstly, actually, lots of answers to that question. Only sight read what you feel confident about sight reading. If you think there's stuff in this that I don't really understand, so I'm not going to sight read it, unless if you play with someone and you're sight reading an accompaniment, then you do your best. But if you're just choosing a piece, look through it first. I'm comfortable. I'm confident. I know all the ingredients. I'm going to have a go at this. Do it at a speed that you can manage carefully, and feel you have that brain space to know that you're getting it right as you're doing it, and to know that you're able to put in as much musical ingredients and content as possible.
Thanks. I will take that on board, and I will try to improve my own sight reading. Sandra saying, I've been using Paul's Improve Your Sight Reading books for many years and have always noticed such a difference in the improvement of each pupil's sight reading ability. So it's great to hear this really works, as we knew anyway, but it's really encouraging to hear that. Thank you, Sandra.
Well, thank you.
And Louisa said, thank you, hugely helpful and encouraging, your answer about the difference between Piece a Week and Improve Your Sight Reading. If anyone has any other questions,
I've noticed actually one from Jasmine again. Two questions actually. She's done. One is, have I done the piece a week for any other instruments? And the answer to that is no, not yet. And I'm not sure. I'd need to get a lot of feedback from people whether they thought it was necessary. It's very interesting because players of orchestral instruments seem to not be quite so intimidated by notes. I think it's the whole kind of ethos in which they work is slightly different. And sight reading has a different kind of feel to it, and particularly those players of orchestral instruments who play in groups or ensembles or orchestras are doing a lot of sight reading anyway. Whether they would need such a series, I'm not sure, but I would be interested in having feedback about that from people. It may be that we do that. And Jasmine's also asked, how are they progressive within these books? And they are progressive to a certain extent, in that they are in an order, and the order is determined by maybe the inclusion of more ingredients and slightly more complex ingredients. I have this really important thing, which I always mention when I'm doing a talk. Things in music are not easy or difficult. In fact, things in life are not easy or difficult. They are simple or more complex. One of my favorite things is I often fly. I was flying last week somewhere, and the pilot doesn't say, welcome to this flight from Heathrow to Ljubljana. I would just like to say that flying a plane is very difficult, but I will do my best. Because flying a plane is not difficult to the pilot. It's easy because they know how to do it. There is a continuum from simple things to more complex things. But if we find something difficult, it's because it's the wrong thing for us to be doing. I'm not going to fly a plane because I don't know how to fly a plane. It wouldn't be very nice for the other passengers, or do brain surgery. But these things, we don't want our brain surgeon to say, oh, this is going to be very difficult. Yes, it's complicated and advanced, but it's not difficult. They can do it. So I think progression is all about giving the right thing to do next at the right time. And if we do that, our pupils are always able to progress. It's not a complicated thing. And so there is a sense of progression in these books, but just that's really what it's all about.
Brilliant.
Can I just chip in just quickly? Thanks, Paul. Just sort of really following on from what you're saying there. Very specific to these books. One of the things I've found really good with these books is that not all of my pupils take grade exams. Some of them play for, I teach students who learn for a whole variety of reasons, some of whom want to take exams and some don't. But the nuts and bolts of how to make music in the way that Paul has described are the same, whether a student wants to take exams or not, whether a learner is interested in that or a more repertoire driven approach. And I think the Piece a Week books are great for students and learners who are not necessarily interested in exams, but who still need the same nuts and bolts stuff. So I found that my students working through those books and just learning a piece a week, I know as a teacher that they're covering all of the different notation that's been developed over many years by expert minds as part of the sight reading curriculum and syllabus that exams boards use. And it is really good because it brings sight reading more into the agenda of those learners, and it gives them an access point that's repertoire based, but which throws up all kinds of things that otherwise the repertoire they're choosing to play might not throw up. So an adult who wants to learn lots of Einaudi pieces and contemporary classical kind of music might not come across some of the notation that will be in these books, and it really throws that up. And of course, in some cases, then they want to also take that further and look at the improve your sight reading books and go into those nuts and bolts in more detail, which is great. I think that's a sort of hopefully a helpful thing just to throw in there, because I think the Piece a Week books do appeal to quite a wide audience of players. So I hope that's that's helpful to those
Thank you.
watching.
Very, very much so.
Sorry, Rachel.
Yeah. So Suzanne's asked a quick thoughtful question here. Is there a sense of intuitiveness in the teaching and learning of pieces?
In an intuitiveness, well, yes, I suppose the answer to that is yes. I mean, the teaching and learning are obviously, as we know, quite different things. But yes, I'd like to know. I'd like to really discuss that more and understand what you mean by that. I mean, as a learner, I want to be able to sight read intuitively, ultimately, in the sense that I want to be able to do it without having to think too much about it. And that the only way I can get to that place is by ensuring that all these ingredients are absolutely known, all the appropriate connections have been made, and then they are all there in what we might call, the filing cabinet that is in our brain somewhere. And then we just draw on those particular things as and when we need them, which is an intuitive process. So I would say from the learning point of view, absolutely. If I'm reading your question correctly, from the teaching point of view, I suppose it's the same thing, really. I mean, teaching is to a large extent a very intuitive thing. If we are looking at each pupil as an individual and working out what's the best next thing to do for this particular pupil, never having in our mind, this is how I teach this, my good pupils get it, my bad pupils don't, kind of thing. And that is a sort of a intuitive thing too, where we are always thinking about what's going on, which is an intuition. We're kind of empathizing with our pupil, feeling what they're learning, what they're understanding, what the next thing to do as appropriate to that particular pupil at that particular moment is. So yes, absolutely, intuition is very important for both the learner and the teacher in different ways.
Brilliant. Yeah, there's a lot to think about there, isn't there? I think someone asked, I can't remember who it was, a little bit further down the line, was, Paul, did you write all of those pieces yourself? And I'm just going to follow up with, how does it feel to have written those 250 pieces? That's quite an achievement.
Yeah. Well, the answer is totally. I wrote every single one of them. It's yes, that's a lot of pieces because they're all different. I hope they're all pretty significantly different. And I don't know how I do that, actually. I just do. It's just something I can do. It's nothing clever about that, really. I think it's just something that one does. I've always loved music. I've always loved the sounds that is music. Music is all about sounds and creating colors and shapes and emotions and all the and just having all that in my head when I'm writing these pieces is a great help. So yes, I did write them all, and I enjoyed writing them all as well. It's quite hard work sometimes. This grade 7 and 8 book, I really had to focus. But in fact, interestingly, when I did start writing this book, I did the whole book in about a week and a half. It's just kind of, all these pieces sort of tumbled out. Once that bit of the brain is firing on cylinders, it fires, which is nice.
Amazing. I think we're just going to take one last question here, and then we'll probably wrap up. But do you believe that it's possible to improve your sight reading as an adult pianist who's picked up the piano after many years, but for whom it's a real weakness? I suppose that's how do you approach sight reading as an adult, picking it up again? Is it something that you need to learn as a young beginner, or can it be taught?
No, it can absolutely be taught. The number one thing is that the learner wants to learn that. If the learner doesn't want to learn it, then well, it's there's no point. But if a learner says, I want to learn sight read at any age, I want to learn sight read, it can be done. And if we have no a kind of timetable in our mind, we know by next week you have to have learned this, then there's the time goes by as it does. We don't put an alarm clock on this. We present the ingredients. We teach and understand those ingredients from as many different angles as is necessary for that particular thing to be really understood. And that's the great art of the teacher, is say you can learn it like this, or you can learn it like this, or you can learn it like this and like this. And eventually you will get it because you made significant connections. You will get it. And then we just build on that. We build more and more connections. And, a friend of mine has just started teaching an 80-year-old and having a lovely time. And they're getting on. There is no limit to what we are able to learn. If we want to learn it, we have patience and determination, two very, very good qualities, I think, to have. If we have a little of those, little patience, determination, we can do it, definitely.
There we go. We can all sight read if we put our minds to it. Amazing. Thanks so much, Paul. And thank you for everyone who's asked questions. Thank you, Andrew. Before we head off, I am just going to let you all know. I'll just share my screen really quickly. Here we go. So we are going to be giving you guys a little free piece. The piece that Paul was playing, called Hand It Over. Sorry. Move that back. So Hand It Over, we will send this out to everyone who was registered for the webinar, and we'll also probably give a link for Andrew to pop on Piano DAO as well, for people to download from there, just as a little taster to see what a piece a week grade 7 to 8 is like. And then if you were interested in finding out more and delving into this series, we do have an offer code that you can use for the entire Piece a Week series, and all of Paul's publications from Faber Music. We can get 20% off if you enter the code APAW20 at the checkout for all Paul Harris publications. That's at fabermusic.com/shop. It's applicable for UK, and it will run until the 15th of August. So do go to check out that and have a look, and hopefully you'll enjoy the series. And I'll just stop sharing my screen if that works. Give me just 2 seconds. I'm not sure if it actually worked.
No.
I don't think it did. But
I'm so sorry. I'm on a double screen.
You explained it brilliantly. You explained it great.
That's fine. Yes, we will send out some information about that offer code as well, with the APAW20 offer code at fabermusic.com/shop. So thank you all for joining us. I'm going to wrap up and say farewell. Paul, Andrew, if you want to say goodbye, and thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thanks so much. It was so lovely to speak to you, and have a lovely evening.
thank you very much. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.